So companies use continuous improvement initiatives, so total quality management, Six Sigma, Lean, these different initiatives. But if you think about the common elements across each of these initiatives, each of these different initiatives, you can boil it down to what you can see in this picture. The idea that there are going to be operational processes that need to be changed. They need to be changed because you're trying to make an improvement, or they need to be changed because conditions have changed. So operational processes are being modified, and typically each of these programs, like Six Sigma and Lean, they modify these operational processes through improvement projects. So you start with the objective of the project, and you try to achieve it through some kind of cross-functional team project that is aimed at getting that objective of that improvement. These improvement projects are typically handled by an office of project implementation. So there's a program deployment, there's an initiative deployment that is being done at the organizational level, at the company level. And finally, this deployment has to be funded by resources. There has to be time given to it. There has to be an infrastructure in place in terms of people who are experts in these deployments and who have different roles in this deployment. So there's a superimposed infrastructure, there's a superimposed organizational structure dealing with the program like Six Sigma or Lean, superimposed on top of the normal organizational chart. So you have the normal organizational chart, and then you have this organizational chart that is focusing on Six Sigma or Lean or whatever continuous improvement initiative is being used in that company. So this seems to be a common way of how continuous improvement initiatives get implemented in large organizations. So if you can look through each of these, if you can study each of these continuous improvement initiatives, what you'll also find is that there are some common elements that they are trying to achieve. They may achieve it to different degrees of perfection, but they are trying to achieve these elements. And I've divided these up into organizational elements, things that need to be done at the organizational level, and then the employee elements. What are the different things that employees need to do? So from an organizational perspective, leadership that is committed to the idea of quality improvement, of maintaining quality, of improving quality. The idea of the cross-functional view, the horizontal view that incorporates the process that is serving goods and services to customers, that is producing the goods or providing the services to customers, and the cross-functional view focusing on the customer. The total systems perspective, not each function focusing on their own particular performance, not just purchasing, focusing on reducing the costs of the things that they're purchasing, but thinking about it from a total perspective, from a total cost perspective. If you're talking about purchasing, thinking about, well, if we buy products that are just focusing on lower cost, how are they going to impact the quality of production? How are they going to impact what the customer ultimately gets? The idea of supplier involvement is common across different quality improvement initiatives. The idea that you need to move beyond your organizational boundary and select your suppliers based on something other than cost, and then keep communicating with them about your quality improvement initiative, emphasizing the fact that you focus on quality, working with them on quality on their end. Measurement is an important aspect of any process improvement initiative. Without getting the metrics, without knowing a baseline that you can depend on, you cannot think about making an improvement. Where do you start from if you don't have a good baseline? Reduction in process variation seems to be a common theme. Although Six Sigma is the one program that specifically focuses on reduction and variation, it's not a new idea. It's not an idea that came up with Six Sigma. These things have been talked about in quality management initiatives, quality improvement initiatives, since the time of total quality management, since the time of quality circles, since after the Second World War, when Japan started looking at quality management and quality improvement in a serious way. Now let's look at the other side, the elements that deal with involving employees. You can think of this as being bottom up, and the organizational elements that we saw were top down. So there's a top down sense to quality improvement, and then there's a bottom up. Setting goals for employees based on the metrics, giving them particular goals. How do what they do on a day-to-day basis, how does that translate into good quality and good performance for the company? Giving them training, giving them the idea that they need to do this in addition to their day-to-day work. So as they're doing their day-to-day work, they have to think about continuous improvement. They have to think about learning from their iterations of doing their day-to-day work, and participate in a systematic way of continuous improvement. So that becomes that seems to be a common element of continuous improvement programs. Frontline empowerment, giving employees the autonomy to make some changes in terms of how they're delivering things to customers. Not to say that they're to make ad hoc changes to the entire process, but giving them some sense of ownership of their work, giving them some kind of flexibility in how they take that last step of delivering the goods and services to customers. What also seems to be common across different continuous improvement initiatives is this idea of teamwork, that there's not one expert in any particular way of doing work, in any particular area of doing work, that it should be a team that gets together, that you get all the perspective of all the different functions, as well as you are able to get buy-in from that team, because that team is going to be made up of people who are in some way connected to whatever work is being improved, whatever process is being improved. Right. Now, let's take a look at this perspective of cost of quality that was popularized by this quality philosopher named Joseph Juran. And he talked about cost of quality as being divided into two different categories. The cost of good quality, those are the costs that deal with companies taking a proactive stance. So prevention costs and appraisal costs. So within costs of good quality, there are prevention and appraisal costs, and costs of poor quality. So those are the costs that a company incurs as a result of their being poor quality. So poor quality has already happened, and these are the costs that are being incurred as a result of that. So those are more the reactive costs, and the costs of good quality are the proactive costs. Those are things that companies are doing on purpose. Let's take a closer look at each of these types of costs. So in the first category of proactive kind of costs, things that companies should be doing is prevention costs. And as the name suggests, they are aimed at preventing quality issues from coming up. So examples, getting good quality raw materials, selecting the right suppliers, training the employees, having a continuous improvement initiative in place. These are all things that take resources. So there's money to be spent. There's money that needs to be spent in order for these things to be in place, things like a continuous improvement initiative. There's time of the employees that is being spent on quality improvement projects in terms of trying to meet with their colleagues and coming up with an improvement idea. And those things are all incorporated in prevention costs of quality. Next, in the category of the proactive expenses is the appraisal. Now, if you take a look at these four costs of quality that we're going to go over, prevention is the one that is the most preferred, in the sense of, if you spend on prevention, you are taking the most proactive stance. But if you can't catch everything with prevention, appraisal is the next best. So we're sort of going down through the levels of not having to do the subsequent costs. Hopefully you don't have to focus too much on the third and the fourth one, and you're focusing more on the first and the second ones. So appraisal costs are simply costs of inspection. What would you be spending here? What would you be spending on here? It's inspection of purchased materials, so time that it takes for inspection. There might be some destructive inspection. You might have to to destroy the sample when you're inspecting it. So those are the costs of inspection that come under appraisal costs. Moving to the second big category, which is the costs of poor quality. These are costs that are incurred as a result of some poor quality. So internal failure is simply saying that you had a defect and you caught it before product went into the hands of the customers. So goods or services, before they reach the customer, are inspected in some way, and the quality problem is caught there. It may be in process, it may be at the end of the process, and there's some cost of incurring this kind of a quality issue. So these are quality issues that if you can prevent them, you should not have these costs at all if you can prevent these kind of issues from occurring. So what are the elements of this cost? It could be scrap if you're making something. It could be having to rework a particular item. It could be delays for a service that you're providing, and now the customer is unhappy because they're getting service later than what they expected. So those are the costs of poor quality. And then you can also include in that the frustration that employees have to face when they are when product is being delayed for the customer, or when bad quality product is something that they're dealing with in terms of delivering to the customer. And finally, the ultimate in terms of bad quality costs, and something that should be completely avoided from a cost to quality perspective, is this notion of external failure. Products have reached the hands of customers and now it has failed, and of course you have warranty costs, you have costs of lawsuits, and nowadays what is becoming more and more important is the idea that people are going to put a bad review for your goods and services, and that's going to impact your sales over a long term. So that's something that you have to think about from a cost of quality perspective. So let's take a look at this picture that shows us the conventional way of thinking about costs of quality. So what you have on the horizontal, on the x-axis, is level of quality going from 100% defective, which means 0% good, to 100% good, which means 0% defective. And on the y-axis, on the vertical, there is cost. So what this is showing is the traditional view that we would think about, which is if you want a very high level of quality, you're spending a lot on prevention and appraisal. So in order to get 100% good quality, you're going to have to spend a tremendous amount of money on prevention and appraisal. Your raw materials are going to be very expensive. Your employees have to be trained very stringently. You have a lot of inspection at the end of the line. And those are the things that you're spending a lot of money on, and you're able to get 100% good only on the basis of that. Now, on the other hand, you have the cost of failures, which obviously are very high when you have a high defect rate. But as you move towards a 100% good or a smaller defect rate, the cost of failures goes down. So if you're 100% good, there's no cost of failure, right? So if you think about cost of failures, that includes cost of internal and external failures. And the conventional idea was that there's an optimal level. There's a level at which you should be, which is saying it's not worth it for you to try to be better than that. It's not worth it for you to go towards a 100% good quality because your costs are going to be too high. So there's an optimal level there. And without putting a number on that, let's say that you are accepting some bad quality at this optimal level. You're saying it's okay to not be 100% good. Now, this view was challenged, and this view was challenged based on experience of companies as well as some research that was done, some empirical research that was done. And what was found that when you have non-conformances, so those internal and external failures, they actually cost you more than you think they cost you, right? So internal and external failures, what do you measure? You measure things like warranty costs. You measure things like, oh, we had to redo this product for the customer, and we had to, or you may even include the cost of lawsuits in there if you have a certain percentage of customers who file a lawsuit based on some external failure that happened in the customer's hands. However, what research showed was that even then you are underestimating the cost of this non-conformance, because what is happening? The lifetime value of the customer. Customers are moving away from your products based on what they're experiencing. Again, what research has found is very few customers actually complain when they have a bad product, especially when they have a bad service. They just move on to the next provider. And so when you think about the cost of non-conformance, it's whatever you're calculating is probably going to be underestimated. There's a lot more to that than the cost of non-conformance. On the other hand, when you think of the cost of the proactive efforts, that cost of proactive efforts is being overestimated from the point of view of there are some benefits from you taking that proactive stance that you don't see in terms of dollars. What kind of benefits are those? When customers get good quality product from you and they get it over a sustained period of time, they become ambassadors for your products. But the main benefit that you get from having a proactive stance towards quality is that your employees get excited about it, that your employees get engaged in the idea of quality management, quality improvement, and they are focused much more on quality management and improvement if they see that the company, that the organization is willing to put in resources in order to give good quality to customers. So what this means is that when employees see that companies care about customers, employees feel better about it, and they also get engaged in the initiatives. So that's the perspective of saying that there are synergies that are not being recognized, and the actual benefits of proactive quality management are much more. Finally, the idea that cost and quality are contrary goals has been contradicted over time. So previously we used to think of these as trade-offs, but now with the idea of cumulative capabilities, we're saying that you take quality as the base and then you build other capabilities that you offer from your products, from your processes based on that. So those were the ideas that went into changing the model. So how did the model change? Well, what you can see here is that compared to the previous picture, what you find is that the optimal level of quality, and again, without putting a number on it, is much closer to 100% good, simply because the costs of prevention and appraisal are lower than what you expected, and the cost of failures are actually very high, even when you're talking about a small defect rate. So previously we had the cost of failures as being a much flatter curve, and here it's much steeper, telling you that as you go towards less than 100% good, the cost of failures goes up very high. And therefore, the optimal level of quality ends up being at a much higher rate. So what this is telling you is that prevention and appraisal more than pays for itself. Right? You can put this perspective into another picture, and what you see here is three different total cost combinations at three different times. So the first one, starting from the left, is saying before there's a continuous improvement initiative, which means not much is being spent on prevention and appraisal, there is a high proportion of costs coming from failures. Then you start a continuous improvement initiative, which means you start spending much more on prevention and reduce your appraisal by a little bit. You still have the failures because you're just at the start of the continuous improvement initiative. So what this is also telling you is that if you're a company who does not have a continuous improvement initiative, there are going to be starting pains when you start with a continuous improvement initiative. Initially, the costs are going to go up because now you are making those proactive expenses into prevention and appraisal. But ultimately, over a period of time, and this could be 2 to 3 years into the continuous improvement initiative, what you'll find is that you get a payoff in terms of there being less in terms of failure costs. So sustaining that continuous improvement initiative is going to take effort, of course. It's going to cost you something. You will still have some appraisal. Although the purists would say that you shouldn't even need appraisal. You should be able to take care of quality at source, and you shouldn't need inspection. Why should you have to inspect your work? and then the failures will also reduce based on you investing in that continuous improvement initiative. So here you get some sense of how a quality improvement initiative, a continuous improvement initiative, can help you in terms of your total cost of quality. So let's put some numbers on a problem of cost of quality and see how this can play out. Let's look at a practical example and see how this can play out. So here's an example of a fictitious company, and what you're going to see in the next few slides are the different costs. So you'll see the amount that they're spending on prevention and appraisal and internal and external failure, and you'll see in terms of percentage of total sales how much they're spending on each of these. So let's take a look at these at some of these numbers and see what you can find. So in terms of prevention costs, this company is spending a total of $20,000, and you can see the categories here. So this would also give you some idea of what are the different costs that get into this category of prevention costs. So product design, quality improvement projects, preventive maintenance of their machines, training of continuous improvement, training for continuous improvement, employee training, additional material expenses in terms of the raw material. You may be paying more for your raw material, so this company is paying more because they're getting high quality raw material. And then the product engineering, there's a premium to it based on building in quality at source. So $20,000 in total. Moving to the second category, the appraisal costs, costs of inspection. So what are some of the things that can go in here? Incoming inspection, work in process inspection, finished goods inspection. So you can have inspection at many different stages. You may have training of the inspectors. There may be external certifications that you have to get or that you like to get. You want to say you're ISO 9000 certified, or you want to get some kind of a mark of training from some industrial body or association that you belong to, and you want to use that. There'll be inspection space, and there'll be some destructive inspection. So putting all these together, this company is spending $110,000. So on prevention, you had a small amount and then a little more on appraisal. And what you see in the next slide is that they have a substantially higher internal failure costs. So rework, compensate reproduction for whatever was sent back from customers, or in this case, I'm sorry, this is internal failure. So this is something that you caught at the end of the line. So you had to make up for the production for that, and that's what's going in here. And then there's materials that are needed for making up for that lost production. And then there's the rework space. So $240,000 being spent based on these categories. And finally, external failure. So products being returned, work hours spent on processing the returns, on checking whether there's a legitimate reason for them to be returned, getting back to the customer and trying to pacify the customer and saying that we will replace it or this will not happen again, those kinds of things. Work hours spent on the actual product that was returned, and then the travel that may happen in terms of inspecting things, the actual compensation that has to be given to the customer, and then there may be legal fees. So what you don't have here, included in here, is the quality of the customer that you've lost for a lifetime, or the quality or the cost of that customer going and telling other customers about purchasing your product. You still don't have that in here. And despite that, these costs are totaling to $330,000. So you get some sense of where this company is at this stage. Their failure costs are much higher. Putting these things all together and trying to compare them with the total sales, what you can see is that you can compare the percentages of costs that are going in each one of these. So I'll let you get your calculators and take a minute to sort of go through these numbers in terms of the percentage of total costs, as well as comparing the total cost to the total sales of this company. All right, so what you've just seen here is that this company is not spending much in terms of prevention and appraisal. There's a total of 19% as compared to sales, and it's also happens to be 19% of the total cost. And then in terms of internal and external failure, they're spending, what is it, 47, 81% is being spent on internal and external failure. So 81% of 700,000 going for internal and external failure, and the cost of poor quality is 19% here. So so it's quite a high percentage on cost of poor quality. Now let's take a look at this from the perspective of if there is a continuous improvement initiative, right? So let's say this company had a continuous improvement initiative in place and they've had it for some time. Now you look at the way the costs have changed. So hopefully we'll be able to see a contrast between what we saw before the continuous improvement program and after. So again, take a minute and do the calculations, and we'll come back and see what we find. All right, so as must have been evident from just looking at the numbers, when you looked at it after the continuous improvement program, you find that out of the total costs of 280,000, which by the way have reduced from 700,000 to 280,000 for the same amount of sales. So sales were constant for this company over that period of continuous improvement. The total percentage of costs that were spent on prevention and appraisal was 91%. So a huge percentage of costs of quality being spent on prevention and appraisal, and not surprisingly, a very small percentage on internal and external failure because this company engaged in continuous improvement. So in terms of total cost of quality as share of sales, the 280,000 works out as 9% of 3 million. And then the cost of poor quality works out at less than 1% or approximately 1% of the total sales. So what you can see here is the impact that continuous improvement can have in terms of costs of quality. So this is a perspective. This cost of quality perspective is a perspective that was made popular by Joseph Juran, who was very influential in trying to implement continuous improvement programs in companies. Joseph Juran also gave us this idea of a comprehensive view of quality, a comprehensive definition of quality for companies. And he also gave us this idea of a Juran trilogy. So what is a Juran trilogy? It can be seen better in the form of a picture. So let's go to the picture and see what these three aspects mean. So here you have quality control, which is the idea that during the operations, you keep an eye on quality and you make sure that you have, you're getting what you're expecting from your processes. So there's an original zone of quality control which depicts what you expect from your process, and you keep an eye on that, whatever you're expecting from your process. And whenever there's a sporadic spike, you know that something has gone which is extraordinary, so you try to correct that. So that's the idea of the original idea of quality control. Now, that's from a perspective of keeping an eye on what your process should be doing, but then you should also be thinking about improving that process. So just the fact that the process is predictable, it's staying within the zone of quality control is not good enough. You need to reduce the costs of poor quality. You need to improve the quality and get to more prevention and appraisal and be able to produce better product for the customer, goods or services for the customer. So that's where you get to this new zone of quality control through quality improvement, right? So you have quality control, you have quality improvement, and what you saw on the previous slide in terms of the third element, and that's quality planning, is this idea that this is an ongoing process. You do this quality improvement, and then the new zone of quality control becomes your baseline for making that next cycle of improvement, for either giving something more to the customer or reducing the costs of giving the same things to customers. So that's the idea of Juran's trilogy, is that this should be a sustained effort, that this should not be a one-time thing. You have quality control, you have quality improvement, and then the idea of quality planning in terms of planning your products and services so that they get into the next cycle of improvement. So finally, in closing, I quote from another person who is very well known in quality circles. This is Deming, and Deming said that the central problem of management is to understand the meaning of variation. Now, what he meant was that there's going to be variation in processes. You cannot eliminate variation completely. Some of the variation might come from customers, some of the variation might come from suppliers, some of the variation might come from the way the process is being done. And especially when you think of innovations and new products coming out every day, of course there's going to be some variation that is going to come into play when you're talking about processes. So there's going to be some variation, and he's urging us to understand the meaning of variation, to be able to see what that variation is telling us. So in order to do that, you measure, and then you assess how much variation there is and where you are in terms of what the customer wants. And he also said that if I wanted to reduce my message for management to just a few words, I'd say it all had to do with reducing variation. So what you can see here is that Six Sigma, the idea of Six Sigma or reducing variation from a process improvement initiative, is not that far from the idea that Deming had a long time ago.